All right, Johnny, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on today.
Hey,
How
no
you
problem,
doing?
Brian. Glad to do it. I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. So let's start. I want to ask you a little bit about your weight loss journey. Okay. You started carnivore, I believe it was July of 2023. Is that correct?
Yep,
So
July
you're
1st.
around, okay, so you're around 7 months or so, I guess.
Yeah, I think
Um,
so.
in that time period, can you share a little bit about the weight loss that you've had?
Well, I'm down I think about 65, maybe 67 pounds. I had already lost some weight back in 2016. I did the whole eat less, move more, and I actually lost 100 pounds. It was right before my mom got sick with cancer and before she died. She said she wanted to see me get healthy and kind of get my life in order from a health perspective before she died because she was diagnosed with cancer and they told her it was terminal. So I really worked hard and I starved myself. I did all, the counted calories and only like 900 calories a day. I was running. I was doing all the stuff you do to try to lose weight and I actually lost 100 pounds. Well, then after my mother passed away, I mean, it was like Katie barred the door. I just went back to eating. I was eating my feelings for one because my mom and I were very close. And I was sick and tired of of being hungry and being cold and being miserable for the 6 months that it took me to lose that weight. So I put almost all the weight back on. I weighed 325 at the beginning of that, and I went down to 225, almost exactly 100 pounds. And then when I started eating again and put the weight back on, I went back up to about 305. So I didn't gain all of it back, just most of it. So between the time I actually started carnivore, because I'd kind of started cutting my carbohydrates and trying to move more before I actually went into carnivore, I was down to like 301. So between then and now, I think the last time I weighed 230. So what's that, 66 pounds or whatever. But for me,
Yeah.
obviously, we all want to lose weight. We want to look better. We want to see a nice number on the scale. But for me, the impetus was for doing this was fixing a lot of health problems, which I'm sure we're going to get into. As
Yeah.
much or maybe more so than the weight loss was kind of correcting some health issues.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue to that. I know that we both had something in common, which was AFib. So we can talk a little bit about that. But what other type of health benefits outside of the AFib have you seen from going carnivore?
Well, my blood pressure. So as you know, I used to drive an 18 wheeler, which obviously that's what I'm in my 18 wheeler now, my tractor. And I did that for a living for a while. My background is I was a paramedic for 20 years. And my health got so bad that I could no longer do that job. And much like Shaun White, I was let go from my job because I couldn't do it. Well, I was too young to retire. I was extremely unhealthy. I had arthritis, and I think every joint in my body was eaten with arthritis. So I had to find a job that I could do physically that made enough money to pay my bills that I could qualify to do. So I went and started driving a truck. Well, as a truck driver, you have to have a physical every other year or every year, depending on your state of health. Well, because I had sleep apnea, it required me to get a physical from a doctor every year to maintain my commercial driver's license. In 2020, and I've been battling high blood pressure all of my adult life. At one time, I was on three different medicines, and I actually figured out some tricks how to kind of trick the blood pressure machine. Well, you take a really, really big breath and hold it just before they take your blood pressure, it lowers your blood pressure just for a few seconds. Well, they've got new machines now that take your blood pressure kind of on the way up. As the cuff is inflating, it's taking your blood pressure on the way up, and it happens really fast. Well, I was not able to trick the machine to 2021, and my blood pressure was off the charts, and I had started having AFib. So I needed to, because I wanted to go back to driving a tractor trailer because it's something that I have a passion for, I had to address my blood pressure. Well, the carnivore diet, all the research I did, all the YouTube that I watched, all the rabbit holes I went down, pretty much said that getting rid of the carbs and the processed food can lower your blood pressure. So that was another thing. So the AFib, obviously getting my blood pressure down to where I could pass the physical so I could go back to driving a truck. But maybe just as important as that was the arthritis in my right hip, both my knees, my left ankle was off the charts bad. I was in pain It made it very hard to sleep because every joint of my lower body hurt. I didn't have it in my wrist, elbows, or shoulders, just my, and I used to have it in my left hip, but 6 years ago I had my left hip replaced. So that's an artificial hip, so it doesn't hurt. But my right hip, both knees, and my left ankle hurt really bad constantly. If it was going to rain, I promise you I could tell you about when it was going to start because my joints would be so inflamed. Even more so than that, I had something called plantar fasciitis, which is just extreme
Mm.
pain in the bottom of your feet. Well, at the time I was working at Lowe's, working on the concrete floor, working 10-hour shifts. And by the end of my shifts, my feet would hurt so bad that I would always park as close to the store as I could because at the end of the night, I really had a hard time walking to my car. And then if you go home and sit down and let your feet kind of rest, when you go to stand back up, man, it's really, really bad. So doing the carnivore diet, within, no lie, Brian, within 2 weeks, that was gone. I mean, just evaporated from a
Wow.
basically a 9 out of 10 on the pain scale, which is almost as bad as you can stand, to zero in about 2 weeks. So that
In
was the
two
first big
weeks.
2 weeks. And when I started carnivore, my wife and I had gone to a local grocery store. Food Lion is one of the chain grocery stores close to us. And and the meat section, they had these big Boston butts, pork Boston butts, marked down like 70% off because I guess they had a big sale and they didn't sell, so they were trying to get rid of them. So we bought a bunch of them, went home and cooked them in a crock pot, cooked them in the oven, cooked them in a slow cooker that my wife has. We just cooked up like pounds and pounds of this Boston butt, put it in gallon-sized Ziploc freezer bags. Well, when I decided to start the diet, I said I'll just eat up some of that pork. So I was eating really inexpensive Boston butt pork with sugar-free barbecue sauce every day. That's how I started carnivore. And even as quote unquote dirty carnivore as that was, my problem started getting better. Within 72 hours, I was feeling better. I mean, it was crazy. And like I said, in 2 weeks, the plantar fasciitis, which was almost crippling, if I didn't have such a high pain tolerance, it would have been crippling. It just melted away. I mean, it just left. Like I woke up one day and it was gone. And I have spent, I could, I'm going to do a video on my channel and show all the appliances and the socks and the shoes and the orthotics that I have bought in the last 2 years trying to get just a little bit of relief from that plantar fasciitis. Because I've spent a ton of money, and some of it would help maybe 1% or 2%, which was better than nothing. But going to the carnivore diet, even as dirty as it was, with just pork and sugar-free barbecue sauce, which I'm sure had artificial sweeteners in there, in 2 weeks was gone. Blood pressure started coming down. I have the little home blood pressure cuff, so I started monitoring my blood pressure. And of course, the weight was falling off. I mean, the weight was just, I was losing a pound a day. For like 30 days, I lost a pound a day every day for 30 days. And just eating until I couldn't eat anymore. It was bizarre. It was the craziest thing I had ever heard of, much less witnessed. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but that just kind of, the arthritis, the plantar fasciitis, the high blood pressure, the AFib, the weight loss. Um, I suffered from really bad depression. I was an outstanding actor at hiding my depression, but I was at 55 years old, like just before I started carnivore. I was almost praying to die. I hurt so bad for so long in so many areas that I felt like death would be a step up from where I was. And of course, that just plays on your mind when you're in pain all the time. It's tough to feel optimistic or, happy because everything hurts. So that was really taking a toll on me. I didn't sleep well. I'd get up, 3 or 4 times a night, every night to use the restroom to go pee. That's gone. I don't ever wake up at night. I don't use the bathroom until I wake up in the morning. So I can't remember the last time I had to get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, which tells me that my prostate health is better. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the list just, you can just check the boxes. It just goes down, down, down. I mean, there's probably 10 things I haven't listed, but those are probably the main ones.
Yeah. That's really incredible too, just the changes that you've seen. And like you said, a lot of people talk about how you have to be really strict carnivore, and yours was probably pretty dirty there. You probably did have some sort of artificial sweeteners in that barbecue sauce and so forth, and still, um, it made a huge, huge difference for you. So, AFib, that's something that is kind of near and dear to my heart because I had AFib as well. I got diagnosed with it back in 2018, and I've been on the carnivore diet now for over a year and a half. I started in July of 2022, so I started like a year before you did.
Right.
So I'm over a year and a half, and maybe a little less than a month in is when I had my last um, episode of AFib. So it's been well, basically it has been a year and a half since, it's been over a year and a half since I've had that last episode, and I was having 2 to 3 episodes per week. I know yours was a little bit different. You were like kind of stuck in AFib there for a while and so forth. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? How your experience was with that?
Well, having been a paramedic for so long, I've actually treated several hundred patients that were in AFib episodes that would call 911, obviously. As an emergency personnel, emergency room doctor, nurse, or paramedic, you see that a lot because I think it's a lot more prominent than people realize. But how it normally starts out, and this is how it started out for me, is I would have one episode, it'd last, just a few seconds, but I could feel something different in my chest. And being a paramedic, I would take my pulse and I would notice that it was irregular, because the hallmark of AFib is not a fast pulse or a slow pulse, it's irregular. And it's irregularly irregular. Like, for example, you can have an irregular pulse that's like doot, 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 doot. So it's irregular, but it's a pattern of irregularity. And AFib, it's all over the map. It could be really fast, it could be slow, it could skip 2 or 3 beats, it could be just anywhere. So being a paramedic, I knew what it was. And at the time, I was extremely unhealthy, as I've talked about, and I was drinking energy drinks because I wasn't sleeping because my having to get up and go to the bathroom, and my arthritis and my plantar fasciitis just hurt so bad it made it difficult to sleep. So I would use energy drinks to get me through the day. Well, so when I started having the AFib, I started cutting back on the energy drinks because I thought maybe that was, bringing it on. It could have had a part in it, but even when I completely stopped the energy drinks, those episodes got longer and more frequent, to where I was having one or two a day every day. But it
Mm.
lasts a minute or two and it resolve and kind of go back to normal. And you can, you can kind of feel it in your chest. You can tell that something doesn't feel right, or you can hear it in your mind that your heart is not beating
Yeah.
the way it's supposed to. Well,
Yep.
they were getting more and more closer, and they were getting longer in duration. So being a paramedic, I knew that eventually it was going to go into AFib and not go out. Because it's called chronic recurring AFib. So I was driving a truck at the time. I was in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and I live in North Carolina. But I was on my way home to do my annual DOT physical so that I could maintain my commercial driver's license. And I went into AFib as I left Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And Iowa is a long way from North Carolina. And I kept holding my breath and doing all the little tricks that I've learned over the years. Nothing fixed it. It stayed in AFib, and my heart rate got faster and faster and faster. And it started getting hard to breathe. Well, this is still kind of during the pandemic, and my wife and I are empty nesters, so my wife is the only one at home. And I didn't want to end up in the hospital somewhere, way out in the Midwest, and my wife couldn't get to me. So I just kept going home. I just as fast as I could get there, safely and legally. I have to say that. But I finally made it home, went to the emergency room, and I'll be honest with you, Brian, walking from my pickup truck to the emergency room door was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I was about to pass out. I couldn't breathe, but I knew if I could make it to the door, somebody would see me and help me. So I got in, they got me fixed up, and they did what's called a cardioversion, where they basically put you to sleep and they stop your heart. And then the thought process, it'll go back to a normal rhythm. You just kind of have to stun it, stop it, and then it should go back to a normal rhythm. And it did, and it lasted exactly 1 week. I went back because I went into AFib again that would not resolve. They said, well, we're going to try it again. We'll do two. So they put me down, took me to sleep. Of course, we had to schedule all this, a few days in advance. And they shot me again, and it lasted a day. Well, then they decided to do an ablation. Well, I don't know about you, but when all this was going on, even though I knew what I knew about AFib from being a paramedic, I started searching every article, every piece of information I could about AFib, and the potential for it to be a bigger problem, the stroke risk, all the stuff that goes with that. So I had this ablation knowing that it's not a guarantee. Now, this ablation was they go in through your groin and they go up into your heart and they actually freeze part of your heart and it kills part of your heart. It literally kills the heart tissue. And the thought process, it'll settle down the rest of it because it kind of disrupts the electrical pathway. So part of my heart is dead and will never come back because I had to have that done. So I have the ablation done and they said, you may have to have this done again later. Well, when I started doing the research, once you have one ablation and then have maybe a second ablation, your life expectancy starts coming down dramatically because they're literally killing part of your heart. That's the only option that they will share with you. This is what we can do. Now they can put you on anti-arrhythmic medicines, which I was on, but they have some horrendous side effects, especially long term. So they felt like this was my best option to have the ablation. After the ablation, within about a month, I started having AFib again. I'm like, I've been through 2 cardioversions. I've had this $250,000 surgery, the ablation, where they've killed part of my heart, and I'm having AFib again. No coffee, no energy drinks, but I'm still very unhealthy. So when I started doing carnivore, and because I didn't have it all the time, it was just sporadically I'd have it after the ablation. Well, one day, maybe a couple months in, I said, I haven't had AFib in a while, not a single episode. And then I found your channel, and you and I conversed a little bit back and forth, especially when your doctor took you off your meds. I think I sent you a text and told you that it literally brought tears in my eyes because I knew what I'd been through, and knowing that you were able to use just changing your eating to correct the things that I ended up having surgery for was amazing. So I'm 7 months in now, not a single AFib episode. I just wish
That's
that,
awesome.
you know, hindsight's a perfect 2020 and you can't go back, but I wish at 51 or 52 years old, I would have known about the carnivore diet, the carnivore way of eating, or just really low carb, clean eating. Um, I don't think I would have gone through all the trials and tribulations that I went through with my heart had I known about this sooner. But thank God I found it now.
Hmm. Yeah. I tell you that I wish I would have known about this when I was 20. So
Yeah, yeah,
oh, man. I tell you, that's awesome, though, 7 months without an episode. And, when I had it, so I did have to have the cardio version one time. There was one
right.
time that I went in it and I just didn't go out of it, and they, scheduled me the next day to have it done. So I did have that done one time. I never got to the point of doing an ablation, but they did talk about it a little bit. But what really gets me is they don't really talk to you about your diet with it, and I mean, like my cardiologist basically was like, my dad had it, right? So he's like, your dad had it's hereditary, and it's probably just going to get worse, and it was getting worse over time. Um, but where I kind of found a little bit about it was on YouTube. I found a cardiologist out of the UK, I believe, that was
Mhm.
talking about diet and helping with AFib. And in his particular case, he, had like a program that he wanted you to go through. So I didn't go into that, but I kind of got some information from him and realized that he was basically cutting out like processed foods and sugars and stuff like that, right?
Yeah,
And then from just watching Dr. Barry's videos and um Bart K, Dr. Baker, Dr. Chafee, and so forth, I knew that carnivore was the way that I wanted to go. I think Dr. Barry had a video where he talked about um, how insulin resistance can lead to issues with AFib. So that's kind of how I got into going into the carnivore diet with it, and it's been a godsend for me. And it's just amazing that they don't talk to you about the nutritional side of things. And I understand that maybe it's not gonna help everybody that has AFib, but there's a lot of people that I've talked to that has AFib and they've either improved it or they haven't had an episode for months and months by going on the carnivore diet. There's something there to that. And for some reason, the doctors just don't seem to be willing to recommend that. Instead, they'd rather give you the medication, give you the pills, or look at doing procedures like the ablation. Seems crazy
Let
to
me
me.
let me ask you a question. So, did you ever get your insurance? Usually the hospital or the doctor will send the insurance company a bill, and your insurance company will send you a an itemized list of how much they paid, your benefits. What's it called? Your explanation of benefits.
Yeah,
What do you reckon that cardioversion cost your insurance company that you had, the one that you had?
that it cost the insurance company? Boy, I have
How,
no
how much
idea.
money? How much money exchanged hands for you to have that cardioversion? 20 grand, 25 grand, 15 grand?
Boy, I bet you it's more than 20 grand.
Yeah, I can. Mine was.
Yeah,
Mine was. My ablation was $253,000, and my insurance company wouldn't pay
yeah.
for it because I had already reached my maximum for the year because I'd spent so much money. So the hospital sued me for $256,000. So
Wow.
I paid and paid and paid. I've paid all I can. I've applied for a hardship case. I don't have $250,000. I mean, my house didn't even cost that. So been going back and forth with that now for 2.5 years, still fighting the fight. The hospital has reduced that. But if you look at just the amount of money that changes hands when you have an ablation or you have a cardioversion or you're put on the Eliquis, I don't know if you took Eliquis. Eliquis is a blood thinner that
Yeah.
they usually put people on. It's $600 a bottle. $600 a bottle.
Yeah, that's the one that I went
Where's the
on.
incentive? Yeah, where's the incentive for them to tell you about nutrition and avoid all this? There's not. If you're sitting in a boardroom of a hospital and your shareholders are sitting there, well, they want to know about profits, margins, all that stuff. They don't want to know about Kieran Brian and Kieran Johnny. They want to know about profits. What's our projection for profits for the next quarter? That's the medical industry. It's like the trucking industry, the food industry, the insurance. Everything is about shareholders and profit and growth. There's no financial incentive, and there never will be, for these doctors and hospitals and pharmaceutical companies to tell you about the carnivore diet or about a low carb or about just eating one ingredient healthy foods.
Yeah.
There's
That
never going to be. That's
that's
never going to be the case. That's what we have to come to terms with.
yeah, that's sad, but you're 100% correct. That's the truth.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that just shows how corrupted our system is, right? Everything is about profit and money. And I get it that, a business is not going to continue if they aren't making money. Um, but there's just really no human factor in caring about the person. It's about worrying about themselves and making sure that they're making a profit. And that's just case in point that it's really up to us to inform ourselves and do the research and make sure that we're doing what we need to do to be healthy, because nobody out there is going to help you. They don't really care. They're going to give you the band-aid, which is this drug or that drug, and it's going to cost this much money,
You know who
and it's
sponsors
going
the
to cause
medical
other side
schools?
effects.
You know who sponsors and pays for the medical school curriculum to be written? The pharmaceutical
Yeah.
industry. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a circle. It's just a circle. And fact check me on this. Fact check me. If you're watching this, Google it. What's Wikipedia, whatever. Tell me if I'm wrong. The pharmaceutical industry sponsors all studies on health and like medications. They sponsor and pay for medical textbooks to be developed and written and dispersed to the doctors. Doctors are they should wear like a NASCAR driver. They should have the patch of the pharmaceutical companies that give them all the stuff. My I'm not gonna say who it is, but somebody in my family that's very close to me used to work in purchasing for a hospital, and I'm a big NASCAR fan, and I got a lot of free tickets to the Masters golf tournament because this person in my family dealt with vendors who sold things to a medical facility. And there was all kinds of incentives. Hey, use our this, use our that. Here's some this and here's some that. Here's a trip. They would twist it where it looked like they were giving it directly to you, but it happens. And it happens every day, 7 days a week, all across this country and Canada, probably in the entire West.
Hmm.
So to your point, people have to take their health into their own hands. You don't have a choice. If you leave it to the experts, leave it to the doctors and to the medical establishment, there's really no hope for you. You're gonna follow the same path that we've seen other people. Now, there are exceptions to the rule. Brian, there are people you know and I know that are overweight, unhealthy, sedentary, and they don't ever have AFib. Right? My father had AFib, and my dad's 82, and he's still doing great. He's the hardest working human being I know. He's a cattle farmer, out of all things. He had AFib. He had two cardioversions, and the second one worked for him. But there are people that aren't going to suffer from this, but they're going to suffer from something, right? We can't afford as a species to eat factory factory made foods. Food doesn't come from a factory. When I go and pick up, because I'm going to be a bit of a hypocrite here, the vast majority of stuff that I haul in my 18 wheeler is processed, prepackaged food. And I haul it because it pays very, very well. Um, but when I go and pick up the food at these different facilities, and they have these huge, huge 50,000 gallon vats, and there's smoke coming out of the smokestack, and there's trains going by, and there's all these equipment and machines making food, makes you wonder, how do we get here, Because food should
Yeah.
not be made in a factory. Just my thought.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. And, you know, this too is where, like, some people will say, "Well, I eat, that food that made junk, garbage, right? And I don't have any problems." And, they might have underlying problems that they don't know about right now, or it might
Right.
take them years, where some people, something's gonna affect them quicker, and other people, they could take years and years before they really feel, the effects of what they're doing to their body. And I
Yeah.
think also when I look at my analytics, like, for my channel, one of the things I notice is there's very few people that are watching my channel that are younger. There's some, but there's very few. It's mostly older people, and I think that's because the younger people haven't experienced those health issues yet. Even
Right.
though what they're doing is not good for their body if they're eating the processed foods and the vegetable oils and canola oils and all the seed oils and stuff, right? But they're still young enough that for the most part, in many cases, they're not feeling the effects. Where you start getting into your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and so forth, you're feeling those effects. And those are more the people that are looking for answers for why they feel that way and so forth. And you got to applaud those people because they're doing the research on their own, that they're
Right.
finding, even if it's on YouTube, they're finding experiences from other people that have learned that this way of eating helps, right? And occasionally, like I said, there are some younger people that do watch my channel, but not a lot. And you really have to take your hat off for those younger people because they probably have not experienced issues, but they've taken upon themselves to do the research and um, better themselves. And unfortunately, there's not enough younger people, and that's where we get into this state, like what you were talking about. Like, it's ridiculous that so much of our food is just processed, made food. It's not real food. It's not whole food, right? And that's what really scares me. Like, you've seen the pattern over the last 50, 60 years, how it's gotten worse and worse. And until you get more of those younger people believing that they are destroying their bodies, and it might take years, but they're destroying their bodies. Until people see that, I think we're going to continue to see this decline in health, just year after year, the decline in health in people. And it's just a sad, sad thing to see.
Well, I can tell you, if you want to make money in the stock market, I can give you a guaranteed way to make plenty of money in the stock market. Invest in all the big food companies. You know who they are: Kraft, Post, Kellogg's, all those. Invest your money in those, and then turn around and invest some more money in the Ozempic and cancer research and diabetes and dialysis. Just because that way you win either way. It's like invest in big tobacco and invest in cancer research. You can't lose. So
Yeah.
I'm saying that almost half-heartedly, but millionaires and billionaires and people in the investment community, they have to look at that. How could they not? If an old truck driver, an old 57-year-old truck driver can see that, surely to God, they can see that too. Hey, let's put a bunch of
Mhm.
money over here and put some money over here because we know people are going to do the easy, convenient, inexpensive thing, right? They're not going to be concerned about their health because they're distracted with video games or football or Taylor Swift or whatever. Let's give them all this, and then let's try to create some medicine that we can give them to convince them it's going to make them feel better or live longer or whatever. It's can't lose. The only way
Yeah.
they can lose is if we could go completely viral with this message. Now, I know Carrie Mann is doing the Healing Humanity. And here's a thought I had earlier today, Brian. Let me see what you think about this. What if we could get 10 million Americans to go carnivore, strict carnivore today? It'd be awesome, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would.
10 million. There's 330 million people in America. That means 320 million are still eating the standard American diet. But we got 10 million to wake up and see that they need to take their health and their future into their hands. But that still leaves 320 million who didn't find it. That's the that's what we're up against. We're like an ant against Mount St. Helens. I mean, that's where we're at as far as trying to heal humanity. But all we can do is, like you, continue to push your message. I watch all of your content, your shorts. I watch everything you do, and I think you have a fantastic message, especially the fact that you dealt with cardiac issues through the proper human diet. And I know you've lost what 80 something pounds, about 80 pounds or so,
Yeah, like
and
85 pounds. Yeah.
I know you've had some brain fog and stuff like that is lifted right for you, and you've got more energy now because I heard you talk about going out with your wife and like spending the whole day out and not complaining the first time you actually enjoyed it. So
Yeah.
all we can do is just keep preaching the message to everybody that we can reach and try to get as many people as we can to understand that there's a better way and it doesn't require prescription. That's
Yeah.
just my thought.
Yep. And I tell you, I had really bad pain too. I had joint pain. I had some arthritis in my foot. You talked about the plantar fasciitis. If I tried to run in the past, I would have that would flare up, and it would just like you said, it's extremely painful. Like there's no way
It's
you're running once that
it's
starts hurting.
miserable,
It's like, oh, you're not running.
right?
So I had all those kinds of things too. I had back pain, I had minor depression, all that kind of stuff. Um, the the interesting thing is also I haven't really worked out a whole lot. I've been doing some things more in the last couple months here, but what I've noticed is recovery is so much better with carnivore diet. Um, I feel like I got to the point with lifting weights of lifting more quicker than back in 2017. And let me tell you a little bit about that. 2017, I got into a program where I was doing a lot of weightlifting and I changed up my diet a bit. It was kind of somewhat low carb, but it was also low fat and counting calories and stuff like that. And I lost a lot of weight, but I could not continue to do it. Right. I did it for a short time and it just, my body was starving itself really and it needed things. Right. So I got back to eating badly again and gained the weight back and all that stuff. But when I used to work out then, I was always sore. Like I had wrist braces on, elbow braces, ankle braces, knee braces, all that kind of stuff. Right. Because I was just always sore. And now I feel like I got to the point that I could lift more quicker than I used to back then. And I don't wear any braces. Like I don't even know where those braces are anymore. I don't use them. I have no need for them. And it used to be too when I worked out like a day or two, it'll be like a day or two before the soreness really kind of went away. And now like it goes away really quickly. I don't have to wait until like the next day to stop feeling sore like in my arms or something if I was doing like a bunch of bench presses or something like that. So it's just incredible how you see so many different benefits with the carnivore diet. Now I want to bring up you're known as the champion within. So we got to talk about exercise with you. and if, you look at your channel and you've got so many videos out there just setting the example, right? The push-ups, jumping rope and everything else that you've been doing, right? The arm curls I've seen you doing out there and so forth. Um, you do a great job with that. And again, you were talking about before carnivore how you were in so much pain, like with the plantar fasciitis and stuff, and of course you had the AFib going on. Like, what what really drives you to make such a drastic change with the exercise? And I gotta say, like, just watching your videos, it seems um like it's I don't know, like there's something there that just it makes you happy and motivated to exercise all the time. So kind of talk a little bit about that. Like what really drives you with that?
Well, I guess it kind of all starts with the fact that before I started carnivore, so my wife and I live in the suburbs. We have a two-story house and all the bedrooms are upstairs. So I'd come home from work and I would just dread going up those stairs. I would stay up to 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning because I was just avoiding walking up the stairs because my feet hurt so bad, my knees hurt so bad. Sometimes I would just want to just sleep downstairs, because it was just too much trouble to walk up 15 steps in my house. So I'm not going to say I was a prisoner in my home, but it was trending in that direction. And Brian, I hadn't forgot that. I haven't forgot that feeling. I don't ever, ever, ever want to be wanting to do something and not be physically able to do it. I am stronger now. I am faster now. I am better now than I was when I was 20 years old. And I'll be 57 in 4 weeks. And all I can think about for 2024 and 2025, I want to be the absolute healthiest, most functional human being that I can be. And I'm just driven. So my channel is called The Champion Within. So I'm not trying to beat anybody else. This is not about me being better than the next guy. This is me being better today than I was yesterday. Semi-retired Bob talks about, and you guys know him from YouTube, Semi-Retired Bob. Look him up. He's a fantastic channel. He's a retired truck driver. Be 1% better today than yesterday. If you do that in 100 days, you're 100% better. Am I right? So I don't know. I can't let a day go by. I only film about 25% of what I do. And you see what I do. But, I work long hours. In the last for the last 5 days, I've driven more than 550 miles a day for the last 5 days. Yesterday was my easy day. I drove 380 miles yesterday. Well, when you drive 11 hours a day, and I can work up to 14 hours a day, I don't have time to get the camera out and film everything. I make time to do some of it because I'm just trying to inspire one other person. Dadgum, this guy's doing it. He's a truck driver. He sits in that seat for 11 hours a day, and he's finding time to do some push-ups and some squats and some lunges. And he bought a jump rope and skipped some rope. And, I got me a resistance band. I do that because it's easy to keep in the truck. If I can inspire one person over the age of 40 to do that, then my work here is done. But wouldn't it be awesome if I could inspire thousands of people to just get up and move? I'm here to tell you, Brian, you'll find this out. I think in the future, maybe in 2024, you and a lot of other people who have experienced these unbelievable benefits of the carnivore way of eating, you can get that same increase again, the exact same again, if you really, really, really dig in and start working out every day. And it doesn't have to be push-ups. It doesn't have to be weightlifting. It could be yoga. It could be whatever you want it to be. It could be walking. I did 2 5Ks last year, and I'm probably going to do 5 5Ks this year. I'm doing one with John Collis from Carnivore Backwoods. He and I are doing one. I think Randy Cato is going to do it with us too, the ground beef guy. We're going to be in not far from where I am, here in Knoxville, Tennessee, on May the 4th. So it'll be my first one. And of course, my goal is to be a little bit better than I was the last time. And then the one I do after that, I want to have a little bit better time than this one. It's just when you first get carnivore and you start having all these improvements in your health, your mood, your sleep, your joints, you want to go out and tell the world. You're like a born again Christian, right? You want to tell everybody. You want to grab them and shake them in the grocery store. Put that crap up. It's going to kill you. Eat this. And that's kind of how I've become with this whole exercise thing. I just want so desperately to share this with people that I don't mind making a video, 4 or 5 videos a week, and showing me doing everything and anything I can do. I'm going to do a series next week. Uh, I'm actually going home tomorrow, so I have time to film it and kind of edit it, showing some of my weaknesses. When I do my lunges, you go down on one leg and then come back up, and then you go down on the other leg and come back up. Well, my left leg is markedly stronger than my right leg, which is kind of surprising, but that's where I had the hip replacement. So when I go down with my right leg, I really struggle to get back up. So my good friend, Coach Bronson, said, John, if there's anything that you're deficient at, work on that. That could be where you start. So if you have a hard time getting up off the couch, just get up off the couch. Just do it 20, 30 times until you get really, really proficient at it. Mine was getting up off the floor when I first started. If I got on the floor, I could not get up off the floor. It was miserable. Now I can almost do burpees. I'm getting close. So I'm going to work on just showing people if you have a deficiency, if one arm's stronger than the other, if one leg is stronger than the other, try to come up with something to build so that you have symmetry so that as you go forward, aging, you don't have a lopsided thing which can make you more susceptible to injury. That was a very long answer to a very short question, but that just shows the passion I have. And I got to tell you, Brian, I'm not trying to be on the cover of Men's Health magazine, but my arms and my shoulders and my chest look like somebody has photoshopped them on me because I was always puny. My shoulders and my chest and my trap muscles right here, I've never had those. As a teenager, I wanted those. I used to lift the weights, and I got the Muscle magazine when I was a teenager. Could never accomplish it. And now, at 57 years old, I'm starting to see muscle, actual visible muscle on my body that I've never been able to attain before. And that's pretty motivating itself.
Yeah. As we talk here, one thing I'm noticing is we're talking about how we were in pain before and didn't feel well and so forth. And now, we feel so good and, we want to go out there and exercise and so forth. And I wonder if part of why in America, at least, probably everywhere, but just talking about in America, why there's so many people that are not getting out and getting exercise in, unhealthy, if some of it has to do with that they don't feel bad enough, right? Because they're getting the medications from the pharmaceuticals that is band-aiding the problem. It's
Yep.
not fixing their problem, it's band-aiding it. So they don't really notice that they're feeling as bad as they really are. And maybe that's kind of part of it. And, whether it's just not having the medication or just if they just went to carnivore and realized that, wow, they feel that much better than what they did before, even if they didn't think it was that bad, just like, wow, I feel so much better now, maybe then they would realize it. But I think that maybe because that people are the problems being masked by medication and so forth, that people haven't really hit that rock bottom that you and I did, where we had to do something about, our health because we felt so badly and so forth. And we had like the issues, obviously AFib is a big one, right? But just the pain that you had, the plantar fasciitis, the joint pain and so forth, you know, feeling rock bottom really motivates you, right? And then feeling so much better motivates you even more. But maybe a lot of people out there haven't had that to give them that motivation because everything's being masked with what the pharmaceuticals are giving them, the drugs.
Yep. And they're distracted with all the social media stuff, and they work. And before I found Carnivore, I would be tired at the end of my work day. I was tired. I worked 10 hours. I worked at Lowe's in the paint department. I worked 10 hours with an hour for lunch, and I'd go home exhausted. The thought of going home and doing one push-up would make me nauseated. Now I work more hours. I do more work. And because my energy comes from ketones, from fat, it's like I never get tired. I never run out of energy. Never. I could go like this, I think, for a month without taking a nap. And so, to your point, before I felt so bad, there was no, I mean, it was inconceivable that I could exercise or do anything when I felt as bad as I did. When your feet hurt so bad that you're a grown man, it just about brings you to tears. You're not going to do push-ups. You're not going to do jump rope. You're not going to do anything. You're going to get off your feet as fast as you can because that's the only place you can get relief, right? Um, I don't know. I just think I think as people start watching this, because I think that what we're doing now, you, myself, and everybody else, I think we're waking up some, and then you hope that the ripple expands in the water, right? The little pebble in the water will expand and get more of the maybe because I've got people now because I post a lot of my stuff on YouTube on my YouTube channel, but I post it on Facebook too, and I've got this is no lie, Brian. In the last, I guess what, I'm not quite 2 weeks, probably 10 days now. I've had 5 people who are friends of mine on Facebook who ironically weren't subscribed to my YouTube channel, but now they are. I say, hey, what are you doing, man? Can you tell me about this? This sounds interesting, you know. And a lot of these people are people that I used to work with, or friends of mine from my childhood that I kind of still keep up with via Facebook. And so, you know, if I can get those 5 people started and just changing how they eat, who knows? And if they can get 5, and they can get 5, you know. But to your point about the pharmaceutical industry, kind of, you know, I mean, I was taking Advil, Tylenol, Motrin. I took everything I could think of to take to try to get some relief from my plantar fasciitis. That was the one thing that was as far. I mean, the AFib was bad, the blood pressure was bad, but the plantar fasciitis hurt right now. You know what I'm saying? It was immediate. I had to try to fix that now because it kept me from sleeping. It kept me from walking up my stairs. It kept me from about. I had a vacation. This is funny. Back in May, I took a week's vacation. We had my wife and I had plans, but my plantar fasciitis flared up really bad the day before my vacation started, and I was off for 9 consecutive days. We didn't go anywhere or do anything because my feet hurt so bad. I laid on the couch for 9 days, and my feet were just inflamed. So my whole vacation came and went. My wife was so disappointed because we had plans. I couldn't even put weight on my feet. And now we make plans. It's Katie bar the door. We're going to do it. We're going to do it all morning and do it all night, whatever it is. You know, if it's shopping or hiking or going to the mountains or whatever. You know, we're gonna. I don't know. I just like you. I just wish I could wake enough people up to see that there is a better way. You know, and you don't need the
Yeah.
pharmaceuticals because my feet didn't hurt because I had a deficiency in Motrin. I didn't have a deficiency in Tylenol. You know, so taking all those over-the-counter meds or even some of the prescription meds I've taken in the past might take the edge off, but not really. You know, and they come with a plethora of side effects, long-term side effects. But as we said earlier, there's not a financial incentive to change most people's paradigm because most people's paradigm buy you know second homes in the Caymans and yachts and airplanes for some people, and they're not going to give that up so that Brian can be healthier and John can do push-ups.
Yeah.
I hate to be such a Debbie Downer, but that's just the truth, you know.
Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, it is. So you had mentioned Carrie Mann earlier, and he's working on a documentary, right? Documentary movie, whatever, about the
Mhm.
carnivore diet. I believe it's called Healing Humanity. Um, and this is something that I think that's gonna help. People are gonna see that, and that's gonna help attract some people at least to the carnivore diet.
Mhm.
What I'm hoping is because I think you're gonna see like a lot of huge weight loss type of things there, right? Because that's what really attracts people. A lot of people that are looking to lose weight, they're gonna see that and they're like, oh, hey, that's great. But what I also hope that we see in that in the Healing Humanity project is that we see some regular, ordinary people that just have a lot of pain and see how their progress went with the carnivore diet and how they've helped themselves, healed themselves, and now are a completely different person, feel like they got their life back and so forth.
Mhm.
Because I think there's a lot of people out there like that. Um, and maybe they don't even really realize that much that their life isn't as good as it should be, but
Right.
maybe seeing that and seeing, different people that can fix so many different health issues with diet, maybe that'll help attract a bunch of people too. So I really hope we see that within that healing humanity. You know, I don't know if it's going to be a movie, a documentary, exactly what it's going to be,
I think
but
it's more of a
I hope we
documentary.
see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope we see that kind of thing as well, not just the huge weight loss, but also the health benefits that you see.
Well, some of the things that have been talked about, and there's been other stories about this, and maybe some documentaries. But I know there's a physician down in Florida, and his name escapes me, but he's working with Alzheimer's patients, and they're putting Alzheimer's patients on extremely low carb, whole food, animal based diets. I won't say carnivore, but probably ketovore, somewhere in that neighborhood. And they're seeing Alzheimer's reverse. You know how many billions and billions of dollars has been spent trying to find a cure for Alzheimer's? The FDA approved a drug a couple years ago that billions of dollars was poured into, and it showed no improvement in symptoms. And the FDA approved it, and it showed the clinical study showed zero. It had negative side effects, zero improvement. But they're so desperate to get something up there because the incidence of Alzheimer's, if you go 35 or 40 years back and track it, and then you track seed oil and you track processed food and Pop Tarts and all that kind of stuff, you see they run together. Well, that hits near and dear to my heart. My mother-in-law, my wife's mom, died from Alzheimer's, and it was horrific. My mother died from cancer. So you see a guy named Jeff DeProsperous, who's a friend of Carrie's. His channel is called Blessings on My Journey. Stage 4 cancer. Should have been dead a year and a half ago. Still thriving and surviving by changing what he eats, exercising, focusing on sleep, and taking the stress out of his life. And so the two things, like, you wouldn't see somebody with Alzheimer's. You wouldn't say that fat person has Alzheimer's. You might not even know it if you just saw them. But if you're a family member of an Alzheimer's patient, you know it, terribly. Somebody with cancer, they're not going to lose a bunch of weight, but they can heal or at least stem the growth of cancer cells and maybe hold it in check. So to your point, that's not something that's going to have a before and after on a photograph. Maybe a video, you can see somebody who was in cognitive decline, and then they're better with the carnivore diet. Or a cancer patient, they can show you the scans. This is my tumors, and now this is my tumors. But to your point, what's going to get people's attention is the Shaun Whites losing 260 pounds in a year. I mean, how could you look
Yeah.
past that? You can't look past that.
Yeah.
But you won't see the people who are healing plantar fasciitis or eating disorders or mental health disorders or autism. You don't see a before and after on a snapshot of that. So I like what you're saying. I hope they bring that out too. Not only the weight loss, because that's what's going to attract the most people, but if we can find people out there who, and Brian, before I started this carnivore, I thought everybody felt like me. I thought everybody's feet hurt. I thought everybody's back hurt. I thought everybody's, I'm 50 at the time, 56 years old. This is how you're supposed to feel, right? This is
Yeah.
normal.
It's just a part of old age, right?
Yeah. And today is the best day. Tomorrow's going to be a little bit worse. The next day's going to be, because it's a downward trend, right? But look, and I'm just going to use myself. Look at my example. I mean, look what I do every single day. And this is a guy that had to have his wife help him off the couch 7 months ago. This is a guy who could not walk up 15 stairs 7 months ago. On New Year's Day, I walked 12.2 miles and I did 400 push-ups on New Year's Day at almost 57 years old. I know there's
Amazing.
more compelling stories out there than mine, but mine's got to rank in there somewhere with somebody else who's 56 or 57 years old sitting on the couch wishing to die, because that's where I was.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to go back to that Alzheimer's thing really quick,
Mm.
because this is kind of in the news a little bit right now. Dr. Sean Baker has been talking about this a little bit. Um, Alzheimer's, dementia seems to be an insulin resistance problem, right?
Mm.
And this makes a lot of sense to me. My grandfather had Alzheimer's. Um, he was not somebody that you looked at as necessarily overweight or anything, really unhealthy. He wasn't overweight. Um, but he did have diabetes, insulin resistance again. This is a skinnier person. They had diabetes and they ended up having Alzheimer's, and it's bad. Like my mother went through a lot in those last, I don't know, probably 18 months or so. Because it's a very rough disease. They get really angry. They don't remember you. They don't remember people. And then they'll all of a sudden they'll remember you, and then they don't remember you again. And it's rough. It's really rough to take care of a person going through that. But again, that the insulin resistance thing, and you know, that's where kind of goes back to what we were talking about before too, that some people don't even realize it because they're not overweight. They don't necessarily feel that bad, but insulin resistance is still happening in your body, right?
Right.
You might be at that point that you're insulin resistant, or maybe you're not there yet, but you're on the path to that, right?
Yep.
Um, so yeah, this is just, again, this is another big thing that I think needs to be talked about. You've been hearing more recently, I think, that people are starting to say, Alzheimer's is kind of like type 3 diabetes, right? They're saying
Yep.
it's the sugar, it's the processed foods and so forth that is causing it. And um, I just hope that we can get more and more research out there towards this. Seems like there's already research coming in. It looks like one of the early signs of dementia is insulin resistance now, and there's more and more people starting to say it. There's articles I've seen. Dr. Sean Baker has linked to. I've got articles. I've got I have something that I'm putting out. Probably will be out on my channel actually before this interview goes out. So, and that's linked to a couple of different PubMed articles, and they all talk about this, right? So we got to get the word out. We just got to keep getting the word out because there's not enough people that know about it, and unfortunately, there's not enough doctors out there that are going to tell people about it because they're going to keep them on those medications. That's where they're going to continue to have a job.
So we're my understanding is, do you know who Gary Brecka is? Gary Brecka. He's on YouTube and
Mm,
Facebook a lot. He's a
I don't
he's
think
a
I did.
he's a PhD, but he gives these talks, and this guy is he's real big on cold plunges and proper human diet, and um, he's a brilliant guy, and he goes around and does symposiums and talks to other doctors and health experts, and he said, I'm just quoting him, he said that America, we're one of the last countries on earth that uses the word Alzheimer's. All the European countries, some of the other countries in the other parts of the world call it diabetes type 3. They've already gone to that, that's in their lexicon. It's not Alzheimer's and dementia. It's not brain problems. It's type 3 diabetes. We know type 1 is, juvenile onset. Type 2 is adult onset. Type 3 is actually, so let's put some meat on these bones, okay? So how do you know if you're insulin resistant? Well, get your A1C checked. No, 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 no. Get your fasting blood sugar checked. No, 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 no. None of that's going to show if you're insulin resistant. You need your fasting insulin checked. You fast for 12 to 14 hours, not less, not more. You can go to ownyourlabs.com. You can go through your doctor, your healthcare professional, do a 12 to 14-hour fast, taking nothing but water and very little of that if you can, and get your fasting insulin checked because your fasting insulin will be way out of whack before your A1C is and before your fasting blood sugar is. They say that you can start seeing people who are going to be diabetics, or in this case, type 3 diabetics, 10 years early if they'll just get their fasting insulin checked. Because your pancreas is doing all it can, right? It's making this insulin, it's trying to do everything it can to get that out of there. And it's going to start losing the battle eventually. But if you get your fasting insulin checked and it's way out of whack, even if your fasting blood sugar is normal, even if your A1C isn't that far out, that's the red flag. That's the huge red flag. Houston, we have a problem. So I would suggest anybody that watches this or sees this, if you want to know if you're insulin resistant, the only way to know that is to, well, I'll say the only way that I'm familiar with is to get your fasting insulin checked. Do that. I'm not saying don't get your A1C checked. Obviously, that's very important because that tracks your blood sugar for about 30 days. And your fasting blood sugar, you want to know that too. Big thing now is the CGMs, the continuous glucose monitor. You can get those now without a
Yeah.
prescription. I'm considering getting one just to see. But the fasting insulin, it'll show up 10 years before the real problem shows up. That's the big in my world. Left lane ends in 5 miles. Left lane ends in 5 miles. Of course, everybody stays in the left lane trying to get there, and then when it's 10 feet left, they want to merge over. Your fasting insulin, left lane ends in 5 miles. You'll know way in advance if you'll get your fasting insulin checked. That'll give you more data going forward than any of the other markers, I think, when it comes to insulin resistance.
Yeah, that's some great info. And I hope people are gonna hear that and do something about that and check because um you know, I think the other problem that you see is that people do get their A1C checked. As long as it's not too high, they're like, yeah, I'm okay. But in some cases, they're already creeping up there, and they're not that concerned about it because it's still not full diabetes. Well, it is a problem,
Yeah,
and to your point, they're a lot further along going to that point than they think they are, probably because their fasting insulin or fasting glucose has probably been showing a problem for quite a while at that point.
right. I have a buddy of mine. He's a truck driver as well, and he suffers from diabetes. And he and I had a conversation about a month ago, and he was so proud. He said, "John, I'm doing so good. My doctor's got uh, my A1C down to 7.2. I'm good because they keep adjusting the numbers. 20 years ago, that would have been horrible. But I don't know if you know this, Brian, but when you go to the hospital and you get your labs drawn, and then they send you the results, and it has like, this is the green line, and you're within the normal, you're normal, you're toward the, the green or the yellow or the red. That's based on the last 100 people that came into the lab.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that
That's
they're
not
good
normal.
too.
That's normal for the population. Now, if all sick
Yeah.
people go into the lab, and who goes to the lab? Sick people, right? And so that's why everything, the Overton window keeps shifting towards, the unhealthy seems healthy because compared to 100 of your neighbors, you're right in the middle. Well, look at your neighbors at Walmart. Look at your neighbors at the grocery store. Look at your neighbors anywhere you go. You don't want to be in the middle of that, you know, focus group. You want to be way to the left of it. So that's something that I just learned really this year when I started diving into all this. I thought when you went and got your labs drawn, if it said normal, that meant normal for you, what your body's supposed to be. No, that's normal for the population of the last 100 people that came to the lab, and it may be
Yeah.
200 people, whatever the number is, but it's not. It's not what's normal for human physiology. It's normal based on a certain number of people that have come to that lab and got their labs drawn.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just assume that if so if somebody said, "Oh, your A1C 7, you're fine, you're normal. Look, you're right in the middle of the range," you would think I'm good. There's nothing else I need to do. When in actuality, you're dying and you just don't know it. You're killing the inside of your body. You're killing all the stuff that we've talked about, and you think because it's quote unquote normal that you're doing everything that you need to be doing.
Yeah. Well, Johnny, it's been over an hour already. We've had a great conversation.
Yeah,
I'd like to have you back on again sometime so that we can talk some more because I think there's a lot of stuff that we can talk about. But I
absolutely.
want to thank you for coming on today. Um, a link to your channel is in the description and it's probably on the screen as well. So I want people to go check out his channel. Again, he's great at motivating you, just leading by example and so forth. He puts out some great content. He shows how you can, do carnivore and be a truck driver out on the road all the time and all that stuff. So there's a lot of great content. So I hope everybody checks out your channel. Again, thanks you for being on today, and we got to do this again pretty soon.
Sounds great, Brian. I look forward to it.
All right.